This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Lisa Dunn runs a daycare with her husband in Wolf Point, Montana, and from that came the inspiration for her Uncle Santa and the Magic Hot Chocolate series. She's written 6 books so far. She's about to write number 7. We spoke a while back, and now we're talking about Uncle Santa and the Magic Hot Chocolate, Pancake Friday, Book 5. But first, Lisa, refresh our memories about how this whole thing got started.
My husband, 10, 15 years ago, he decided he wanted to dye his hair and play Santa for our daycare kids. And to look at him, you would never know that he would be as good as he is. But once he came back with his hair dyed white, he looked like the real deal. He's got the personality and he looks like the real Santa Claus. And so I did not want to mess with anybody's stuff that they do at home and their traditions. So what we do here at our daycare, and we do this every year, Santa sends the magic hot chocolate, and it's a big one-day ordeal here at the daycare. He sends the magic hot chocolate, and once my husband Mike drinks that magic hot chocolate, his hair turns white and he turns into Uncle Santa, who's Santa's helper. So he's not the real Santa Claus, he's Santa's helper. And I just started writing the series. I just thought it was such a cute story, it needed to be shared.
All right. And now we have Pancake Friday, Book 5.
So my husband decides he wants to make pancakes for breakfast one day. And he made pancakes for breakfast for the daycare kids. It happened to be a Friday. So it came to be that every Friday, it was just this habit. Every Friday, Mike made the kids pancakes for breakfast, and he still does this. I get so many really good one-liners from the daycare kids, and they just give me everything to give me inspiration for a new book. And this is exactly what happened. One little girl said, she told her grandma, she said, Grandma, it was on a weekend, I want pancakes for breakfast. So what did she do? She went down to a fast food place and she got the pancakes and she brought them home. And the little girl said, Grandma, this is like the pancakes from that fast food restaurant. I want homemade pancakes like Uncle Santa makes. And it kind of just started, the one-liner started, and I wrote book 5 based off that. So everything I'm writing is based off normally something that happens in the daycare.
It's hysterical. How old are they?
The one that commented to her grandma about the pancakes right now is 6. So she was 5 at the time. But I've got a couple of 7-year-olds that give me amazing one-liners. So this grandma wanted to know what makes Uncle Santa's pancakes so good. So I tell that in the book. My husband's got a very good sense of humor, and he's very, very good with the kids. And I'll tell, well, maybe you should read the book and find out why Uncle Santa's pancakes are so good. It's just a really cute story. It makes the kids laugh. It's silly. It's fun. And in the end of the book, I always try and teach the kids a little something. And so in this book, the family's neighbor's car broke down and they were getting it fixed, but they didn't have a car. And so Uncle Santa sends breakfast home with this family to give the neighbors. So he's always looking out for other people. And we just have to watch out for people. We have to help when needed. And so Uncle Santa tries to teach the kids that lesson as well.
So obviously, every time you write a new one of these books, you can read it to your daycare kids, right?
Oh yes, it's their books because I put my daycare kids in the books and I put their names in the books. So they're not my books; they're their books, and they ask to read them every day. We do Christmas every day of the week here.
How do you actually sell these books?
So I do vendor shows, I do book readings, book signings. In a couple weeks, I'm going to be at the county fair. And I also saw them on Target and on Walmart.com as well. I'm going to end up writing about 12 to 15, I think, in this series by the time I'm done.
Well, I'm glad you have, a constant flow of inspiration in there.
I do. I can't quit. I'm in my late 50s. I can't quit daycare till I'm done writing because they are my inspiration for the books. I will tell you what else I do. Have you ever heard of Kindness Rocks?
No, I have never heard of Kindness Rocks.
So kindness rocks are painted rocks that people paint and hide to put smiles on people's faces. Basically, that is all it is. So when you find a rock, it just makes people feel good and smile. I have started making Uncle Santa rocks with the barcode scanner for my Facebook page on the back of the rock, and they're worldwide now. And so I send them to people to help me hide them, and they literally are worldwide, and that gets the word out as well. I've been sending a lot of rocks to the St. Jude's Hospital in Tennessee.
That's awesome, Lisa. Good stuff. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I can't wait for the next one.
Yes, I'm waiting for the cover, and then it will be out before Christmas.
Writing poetry is Amanda Patricia's creative outlet. She started by writing down her dreams as a little girl, and by the time she got to high school, she was writing poetry. Now, 2 years after graduating college, she's published her book of poetry entitled Life Be Like That Sometimes.
I was inspired to write all of my complicated feelings that I was going through. High school, it's kind of like a tough time and you're just kind of trying to.
It's a horrible time.
Yeah, it's the worst. You just go through so many changes, and in college, things just get even more strange because you're an adult now and you're supposed to function and and things like that. And so I just wanted a creative outlet to express all the complicated feelings and experiences that I was going through, and I wanted other people to be able to relate to what I was going through so that they feel less alone, because I know personally I felt very alone as a kid and in college and everything. So,
Do you have a poem you'd like to share with me?
oh, yes. I have a quick poem. It's called My Chosen Family. I've always been alone, just me, myself, and I. It was comfortable because that is all I've ever known. Simply, I've learned to do everything on my own. Then I met people. Loyal and honest, they've stuck to me. Through thick and thin, now I have this family, great and big. And the world doesn't seem so lonely. Sometimes family isn't the one you've been born into. It's the one that's chosen because they've chosen me and I them. That's a bond not easily broken.
Oh, I like that. You know, you could put that on a card.
Yeah, that's a great idea actually. There's this app called Affirmations, and they have quotes and stuff that you can put on there. That would be a cool idea. Yeah. And it sends you a reminder every hour or whatever, and it has just different sayings.
So you could submit your sayings, your poetry?
I would be so open to doing a collab with that app. It would be amazing, actually. So Life Be Like That Sometimes was just definitely between 2019 to 2020 when life was crazy and you know, you're in college, but you're also doing COVID and things like that. And so my other books are just from the continuation of what life is, you know?
Do you have any pandemic poetry?
Um, Not really, not really specific for the pandemic, but I mean, all of these were written during that time. It was just such an insane time and so many emotions, you know?
Yeah, it was particularly hard, I think, for kids who were getting ready to graduate. Big things that happen, in every kid's life. Like you just got screwed.
Yeah, my graduation wasn't anything big. We showed up to the parking lot. They did a drive-by congratulations, and then you got your diploma, and that was it.
Yeah, hopefully you're going to figure all this out and do a much better job than we did. God forbid if anything like this ever happens again.
Well, that's the goal. And I feel like everybody's struggling. Nobody's getting a free pass, you know? We're in this together, and that's really what I wanted to translate with my book. That, life be like that sometimes. It's not a fairy tale. It's not a movie, like a Hollywood movie. It's hard, and dark sometimes. And yes, you have moments of joy, but like nobody talks about the hard times and how, we're just expected to, we're kids, and then one day somebody decides, oh, you're an adult now, like you got to figure your life out and have everything figured out, but nobody has that. We don't necessarily have that much of a plan. Like I knew I wanted to study psychology and I knew I wanted to be an author, but not a lot of kids my age didn't feel that way. And like even now after graduating from college, like people ask me, so what's your next thing? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I published a book. That's my next thing. And then after I published the book, they're like, okay, so what are you going to do now? And it's like so frustrating because we can't enjoy the moment because we're always thinking about the next thing. And that's the hardest thing because you're just like, I should be proud of myself, but right now I'm not proud. I'm worried about what else I can do to like stay relevant, you know?
Well, you are relevant, Amanda, and life is a journey, not a destination. So you hang in there. We'll talk again. J.R. Hazard fixes pools and rehabs homes, but his passion is writing, researching characters, and creating a story. This one, based on the construction industry and the mob, is entitled Empire and Illusion, or Manuscripts as of Saturday, August 27th, 1987.
There's two separate storylines. So there's a storyline in 1973, and then there's also a storyline in like 1984 is when it starts. And it's about an author who is discovering the story from a decade earlier. So he's doing research on this mafia storyline from a decade earlier, and he's learning about what happened as he goes along, as he does his research,
Why is he doing this research?
It's only teased in this book, but he's doing the research because his son was very interested in the story as it was happening, and he's lost contact with his son, and so he kind of becomes infatuated with this story out of missing his son, basically. So it's a story about there's a mafia godfather named Alphonse Giordano, and he's trying to scheme a way into building a sky rise in New York. In New York, there's a thing called the Concrete Club, where they used to basically skim money off concrete pourings, and that's what he's trying to do. Is he's like, if we build this sky rise, I can basically pour concrete and skim the money off of it. And several other mafia members get involved with it. Construction with the mafia was a huge thing in the 70s. There's actually a stat that basically construction in New York was about 10% higher than everywhere else in the United States because of the mafia. And they'd rig bids and stuff like that, like tell all the companies how much to pay or how much to bid, and then everybody gets a cut, basically.
So were you just fascinated by this? Is that what made you want to write about it?
Yeah, and I think I hoped that it would be an exploration of like the way that poverty leads people to criminality. And so there are the people like Alphonse who are like at the top, but it's kind of like the McDonald's hierarchy, or like there's like 2% that make a bunch of money, and then there's 98% that don't make anything. And so I wanted to explore it, or at least play around with it a little bit. That type of not everybody in the mafia makes money, basically. So there's like characters like Alphonse, and then there's a bunch of other characters. Like there's one named Ricky, there's one named Benji, there's one named Tony. They're not making money. So what basically happens is all the families get cut into this high-rise scheme, and two of the families go against the other two. So people start complaining. They start complaining about cuts, and it goes back and forth a little bit. And I try and like mimic some like real events. Like there is an event that mimics the murder of Joe Colombo, where he's in Columbus Circle, Italian Heritage Day parade and all that stuff, and it mimics that. I try and mimic it's called the Jaguar tapes, where a series of tapes with high profile mafia boss, and I do try and be true to what the reality of the mafia is.
So it's fascinating, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. And actually, Newport Kentucky had a lot of mob connections, and there's a few spots in Newport where Frank Sinatra would meet with mafia bosses.
Yeah, he met with them all over the place.
Yeah, he was.
Do you leave us hanging at the end of this book? And is there a sequel?
Yeah, I hope it'll be 3 books, but yeah, it's definitely not completed. The story is not completed. I hope that I tease some pretty interesting characters, and I hope that I'm able to develop them. But yeah, that none of the storylines are complete.
How are you telling people about your book?
I do have social media. I'm not incredibly active on it, but at JR Hazard Official on Instagram. It's a lot of local stuff at this point, but we go around and do the book signings, and I love talking about writing. Whatever talent level I am, I don't know, but I love talking about writing. The creative process, I love talking about it. It's just fun for me. It's something that I've mind experimented or whatever for a long time. And I just like talking about it. And I like talking to other creative people and just talking about the process and the way they write and the way that they think about stories. That's the biggest thing. Is I just love stories. There's a great book called The Five Families. It's written by Selwyn Rabb. And that was probably the biggest research that I did. There's also mob guys like Michael Franzese and like Sammy the Bull. Watched a lot of their videos and stuff like that. But yeah, it was fun to immerse myself in those stories and then kind of pull yourself out and okay, let's create something that is along the same lines, but not copying exactly. So.
All right, J.R. Hazard, good stuff. We've had a couple of books about weight loss after people put on weight during the pandemic and then struggled to take it off. But this book by Dennis McVicker has one of the more interesting titles, Boil the Frog.
Well, 2020, I kind of, got ballooned up, being stuck inside, and I found some tactics that could work without, violating social distancing and all that. So, I started going for walks, and I just started more and more, and I started thinking about it. It's like I'm never changing what I'm eating, and I'm still losing weight. I'm just sending myself little notes in my email and saying maybe I should write this down, let everybody else know it's not that difficult to lose the weight you want to lose.
So you didn't change your eating habits?
No, I didn't change anything. Eventually you change it, but I didn't need to change it to lose the weight. I just started keeping track of it. And I didn't eat as much as I wanted. I just ate what I wanted. I started keeping track on my Fitbit app, and that helped me. I still eat cheeseburgers. I still eat pepperoni pizza. I just burn more calories than I take in, and I lose the weight. I just keep track of it.
Were you sedentary before you decided to start taking walks? Did you ever work out before?
Well, I did before, but not at that time. I think I was up to like 235 pounds, something like that. I used to be pretty skinny. I grew up, I think I was weighing like 130 pounds, something like that. So.
But the name of your book is Boil the Frog.
Well, Boil the Frog is you set your own pace. So the frog you're boiling is you, and when you're ready to turn up the heat, you know it. So you don't. A lot of people I was talking to, they go to gyms and they try to get in shape, and then they get a trainer, and that trainer just beats the crap out of them for like a day, and they're like, you know what, I'm done, and they're so sore. They're done. They just don't want to do it anymore. But my philosophy is you start small and you just increase it when you're ready. Just be better than you were yesterday. And eventually you'll get to where I am.
So do you eventually change your eating habits while you're at it?
Yeah, you substitute. I talk about that too. It's like, yeah, you don't have to, but you just feel better when you change certain things. You switch out chips with like a fruit cup or something. Just make little small changes while you're doing it, and eventually you have a pretty decent diet. I still eat pizza, but it's pretty rare. Like you'll do it on a Saturday or special occasion. Eat birthday cake and ice cream, all that stuff. You work hard so you can treat yourself, and that's part of the philosophy is to just have fun with it. If you're not having fun, you're just gonna quit.
What's the frog like? Am I missing something about the frog? Like, what happens when you boil a frog? Who knows what happens when you did you ever boil a frog?
No. Okay. There was a myth I wrote about it in the book, but I have not been able to find the experiment, but allegedly there was an experiment in the 19th century. It was they found out that if you had a boiling pot of water and you tried to put a frog in it, it would jump right out. But if you put a frog in lukewarm water, it would just sit there and you could slowly increase the temperature over time and it would boil alive. Like it would just
Why would you want to do that to a frog? To eat it?
no, it's just the experiment. Like, can you boil a frog? And it's like slowly over time you can. I don't know why they did it.
Oh, that's your weight loss philosophy,
Yes,
is slowly over time.
build it up slowly over time, and you'll be able to accomplish things you thought were impossible.
All right, Dennis, thank you. Tim Ratliff was an Appalachian Army brat, and that's the name of his book about family, struggles, alcohol, drug abuse, constantly moving, and people who came in and out of his life who made a difference.
It was hard for me. My father was very abusive in the early years, and alcohol was a big problem in our family, and it was just one overcoming a lot of different things, that most of us have to overcome in order to forward our agenda. I guess it could be.
The Army took you out of Appalachia,
Yes,
and you ended up living all over the place?
yes. I think I changed schools 10 times. I had low self-esteem. My father had a drinking problem, and we were isolated, moving around, different people in and out of our lives. It just puts me on a path where I know that I have to do certain things to be successful, and I have to change the way, that I operate. And it's just a struggle that went on for many years. And actually, a decent football player, I played strong safety and corner, and pretty good actually. But I went from that, and I fell in with the wrong crowd and started smoking pot, doing drugs, and turned into a delinquent. And went from that to one time I caught a ride with a bunch of guys going to Louisville, and I got in there and we took off, and they were passing a gun around. They were going to rob a 7-Eleven, and yeah, so I said, you all can put me out right here. This is where I'm getting out. Thank you for the ride. And I turned around, hitchhiked back to my house. And the next day I joined the Army. I guess you could say that was a turning point,
So the Army kind of helped you get out of your own way.
Yes, they kicked my ass, to be honest with you, which is really what I needed,
Did you learn anything? Like, were you a better father, a better husband because of the way you were treated and the way you were brought up?
Yes, I took note of that. It was always in the back of my mind, and I always made an effort to do things different than my father. My father didn't have a great role model either, and so I would say that's it. I paid close attention to the dysfunction of our family, and I tried to apply them lessons years later when I had children. My kids, they weren't like me, thank God. They didn't run around. They weren't juvenile delinquents or anything, and they've done well for themselves. They make more money than I do. They're more educated. They're more educated than I am. So I think I was successful at steering in clear of those problems.
No, that's something. That's saying something.
The moral of the story is never give up. Keep your head on a swivel. Look around. Look at what's going on around you. People come in and out of our lives, especially as an Army brat. But it's like that with everybody. Some of the friends are good. Some of them not so good. Okay, and you need to be careful with your friends. They can get you in a lot of trouble if you're not careful. Just keep plugging away. Never give up. Things are hard, and keep plugging away, and eventually you'll prevail. That's my message.
That's a good one, Tim. Thank you. James C. Bennett has written several books for Page, and now he's published Ellie's New Path, a follow-up to his first book, Ellie's Path, about friendship, love, and trying to keep going after tremendous loss.
It's an experience, and I guess you could say that, like grief, you never lose your feeling for grief, but you just learn to live with it. And this is Ellie's path onward after she has lost the love of her life.
So she lost her husband, right?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you bring us up to speed on what the first book was about?
Actually, the first book, I have taken it from when she was a child to being a girl and then a woman with her husband, Joe, and then his passing.
Where does her new path take her?
It takes her to a town of Blue Ridge, and it takes her with her experiences of forming new paths with friends, new friends, and her family.
I have to ask, is this a story that's close to you?
No, it's my imagination, and I suppose you could view it as if my wife had succeeded me and what she may have gone through adjusting and living her life anew.
Okay, so does Ellie find her way, or is there a follow-up?
It is left open, and there could be another book.
What would you say is the most significant thing that happens to Ellie in this book?
That she can again feel love for other people.
So she wasn't sure whether she could really love someone again.
She had lost her one true love, and it took her a while to warm to other people.
So you getting the word out there?
I would like to have a book signing, which would be local, and I am in the process of setting that up with one of the local establishments.
All right, James, you're on your way. And that is a wrap for this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Didn't that go fast? Thanks so much for joining us. If you want to find out more about the authors and the books that we feature here on the show, just go to pagepublishing.com. You can also find out information about how you can get started on your book because you know you want to. Maybe you just need a little push. What I can tell you is whenever the spirit moves you, you can call Paige for your author submission kit, like anytime, day or night. They got somebody manning the phone 24/7. You do not have to wait. In fact, they're waiting for you. And you know you can download the podcast at 710WOR.com. I'm Atlas Stockton Rossini. Catch you next time.